Hey guys, welcome to a new video. So this is going to be like a little subsection of the first video. So what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on exercises on conversions. So we're just going to focus on conversions here. So what we saw in the previous video, we saw that we looked over kilo, mega, giga, and tera. We don't really need to worry about peta, exa, zeta, and yada. Those are just higher levels that we don't need to know. So for kilo is 10 to the third. So for every 1,000, let's say, seconds, if there's 1,000 seconds, that goes into 1 kilo. All right, so 10 to the 3, right? So for 1 kilo equals, let's say 1,000 seconds. We're going to use seconds for this one. For 1,000 seconds. For the second one, mega is 10 to the 6. So there's 10 to the 6 seconds in 1 mega. And so on, 10 to the 9 seconds for 1 giga. So that's how that goes. It's very straightforward. These are just conversions that we're just trying to focus on. And for the second side, it's exactly the same thing. So for milli, it's going to be the opposite since this is smaller. For 10 to the negative 3, so every 10 to the third milli, let's say seconds, milliseconds is 1 second. For every 10 to the 6 microseconds is 1 second. And for nano, 10 to the 9 nanoseconds is 1 second. Alright, so let's do some exercises here. So the first exercise is how many milliseconds are in 1 second. So the main focus of doing these types of exercises, the way I like to do them, I like to cancel out the measurements. So for 1 second, we're starting with 1 second. We want to convert 1 second into milliseconds. I want to cancel out seconds, so let's say 1 second. How many milliseconds are in 1 second? How many milliseconds are in 1 second? So it's 10 to the negative 3. So it's 10 to the third milliseconds in 1 second. So what we're going to write here is 1,000 milliseconds. So as you can see here, these, where's my pen? My pen's over here. These seconds are going to cancel out. So it's 1 divided 1 is just 1 times 1,000. We're left with milliseconds. So what the answer is going to be 1,000 milliseconds. 1,000 milliseconds. So you can see here 1,000. There it is. Then we'll move on to the next one. We'll do different in colors. Do purple. Erase all the ink. So it's going to be around the same thing. It's going to be 1 second. Now you want to cancel out the seconds. 1 second on the bottom. How many microseconds in 1 second? So that's going to be 10 to the 6 microseconds. So what we're looking at, it's going to be 1 million microseconds. Go on the next page, 1 million microseconds. For 1 millisecond, for this one, we are not starting off as seconds. So just for the beginning, just as we start off, we want to make sure we have the correct conversions. So what I like to do is I like to go back into seconds. So we have our base in seconds. So for 1 millisecond, And we're going to put 1 second on the top. And how many milliseconds are in 1 second? 10 to the third milliseconds. Now we want to do what we did before. We are now converting in seconds because these milliseconds cancel out. We're in second, 1 second, and we want to get to nanoseconds. So it's going to be 10 to the 9 nanoseconds. So if you see, microseconds cancel out, seconds cancel out, we're left with nanoseconds. So it's going to be 10 to the 9th divide 10 to the 3rd, which is 10 to the 6th nanoseconds. So what's going to happen is that here we are left with 1 million. 1 million nanoseconds. There we are, 1 million. Let's move on to the next one. So 1 milliseconds into microseconds. Let's do the same thing. If you guys know how to go just straight from milliseconds to microseconds, go right ahead. This is just to help people that are first looking at these types of conversions, and it'll actually put something on the screen for them to actually practice. So for 1 millisecond, how many milliseconds in 1 second? 10 to the 3 milliseconds. Again, we want to convert to seconds. And in 1 second, how many microseconds are there? 10 to the 6 microseconds. Milliseconds cancel out, seconds cancel out, we're left with microseconds, and we have this 10 to the 6th and this 10 to the 3rd. Divide these out, and the conversion is going to be microseconds, so it'd be 1,000 microseconds. And that's the answer for that. Let's check it out. There you go, 1,000. Next one, microseconds into nanoseconds. Same thing. We're going to do the same thing. Microseconds, 10 to the 6 microseconds in 1 second. 1 second, 10 to the 9 nanoseconds. Microseconds cancel out, seconds cancel out. We are left with 10 to the 6th, 10 to the 9th nanoseconds. 10 to 9 on the top, 10 to the 6 on the bottom. That leaves us with 1,000 nanoseconds after we divide. There we go, 1,000 right here. Let's erase all this. So this is when we move into the higher levels of conversions. For the first one, it's going to be gigabytes into kilobytes. So for this one, instead of going into seconds, we want to go to the smallest conversion, which would be bytes. So let's look back. For a gigabyte is 10 to the 9th. So there are 10 to the 9th bytes in 1 gigabyte. For mega, there's 10 to the 6 bytes in 1 mega. In kilo, there's 10 to the 3rd bytes in 1 kilobyte. So with that knowledge, let's convert into bytes first as a rudimentary type of conversion. So we have 1 gigabyte. And in 1 gigabyte, there are 10 to the 9th bytes. And in kilobytes, there are 10 to the 3rd bytes. 10 to the 3rd bytes in 1 kilobyte. As you can see, gigabytes will cancel, bytes would cancel. We're left with kilobytes. So it'd be 10 to the 3rd, 10 to the 9th, I'm sorry. The 10 to the 9th is up here, and the 10 to the 3rd is down here. Kilobytes. So that leaves us with 10 to the 6th kilobytes, or 1 million kilobytes, right here. And you can also do to the power of 2. So in gigabytes, in the powers of 2, right here, 2 to the 30, and the power of 2, kilo is 2 to the 10th. So you just divide those, 2 to the 30, divide 2 to the 10, leaves us with 2 to the 20 kilobytes. Moving on to the next one, we have megabyte and kilobytes, which is exactly the same thing, except of 10 to the 9th bytes in a gigabyte. It's 10 to the 6th bytes in a megabyte. So I'll just show you. So in 1 megabyte, since we want to cancel these conversions out, there's 10 to the 6 bytes. And how many bytes are in a kilobyte? 10 to the 3rd. And I just want to make sure where you guys know I'm taking these numbers from. It's right here. 10 to the 3rd for a kilo, 10 to the 6th for a mega, and 10 to the 9th for a giga. Just want to make that clear. So, how many bytes are in a kilobyte since we want to convert it into kilobytes? So it'd be 10 to the 3rd bytes in 1 kilobyte. So we make sure these conversions properly cancel out. So the megabytes cancel out, the bytes cancel out, and we're left with kilobytes. We're left with 10 to the 6th, and we are left with 10 to the 3rd. After we divide those out, it'd be 10 to the 3 kilobytes, or 1,000. 1,000 kilobytes. So we can see here, 1,000. Same thing for powers of 2. The power of 2 for a megabyte is 2 to the 20. The power of 2 for kilobytes is 2 to the 10. So once we find those conversions and we divide them, it'd be 2 to the 10 kilobytes in 1 megabyte. Now we move into gigabytes and megabytes. Same exact thing. Nothing new here. Just practice for you guys. 1 gigabyte. 1 gigabyte. Alright. 1 gigabyte. How many bytes in a gigabyte? 10 to the 9 bytes. How many bytes in a megabyte? 10 to the 6 bytes. And 1 megabyte. There you go. Gigabytes cancel. Bytes cancel. We are left with megabytes. 10 to the 9, divide 10 to the 6. 10 to the 9, divide 10 to the 6. Megabytes. So that leaves us, this is the 6. That leaves us with 10 to the 3rd. Megabytes. So that is 1,000 megabytes. There we are. Alright, so 20 megabytes into bytes. Same exact thing. This is actually a very easy conversion. So it's 20 megabytes. And how many bytes in a megabyte? 1 megabyte. And 10 to the 6. So it's just going to be 20 times 10 to the 6 bytes. So megabytes cancel, we're left with bytes. So it's just 20 times 10 to the 6. So what is that? 20 mil. 20 mil. There we are. And for the last one, it's 2 gigs. So 1 gig. How many bytes are there? 10 to the 9 bytes. And how many bytes in a kilobyte? 10 to the 6 bytes. 1 kilobyte. Alright. Gigs cancel. Bytes cancel. We are left with kilobytes. So what we have is 2 times 10 to the ninth. Let's get rid of that. It's a little sloppy. What we're left is 10 to the 6th, 10 to the ninth. So it's 2 times 10 to the third. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is 10 to the third. 10 to the third. What we're left with 2 to the 6th. So it's 2 mil. We're left with 2 mil. And 2 mil. Well, guys, this was a quick video on exercises, how to do conversions in megabytes, gigabytes, seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds. So we will use this for sure. 100% we will use this. So I hope you guys understand the concepts of how to convert into these different types of units. And it's very important. We will be using them in later questions, especially at the end of checkpoint of this chapter. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I hope you guys followed along and actually learned something from this video. And this is Everything Programming. We will be back in a couple videos. We will be learning the hierarchy and structure of the computer and its different levels. So just stay tuned for more computer organization. Thank you so much, guys.